Hello and welcome back to my channel. And a happy new year. Today's the 1st of January and I'm filming this today. I don't know when I'm going to post it, probably later this week. But this is going to be my TBR game for the month of January. As usual, let me just preface this video with the books that I did read in the month of December. So I read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which was taken from the November TBR that I had, but I hadn't finished it in November, so I finished it in December. Then I read The Love Hypothesis. Then I read Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau, which was on my TBR list. Then I read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which technically I started like 6 months earlier than that, and I just finished it in December as well. Then I read None Shall Sleep, which is by Ellie Marney and was a thriller that I hadn't expected to add to my TBR. Then I read Exit Strategy by Martha Wells, which is the 4th novella in the Murderbot Diaries, and that I had picked as part of my TBR. And then finally I read Ace of Spades, which was also part of my TBR. So the books that I didn't manage to fit in there were Death and Croissant by Ian Moore, and I am going to try and put it on my January TBR, and Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, but I don't think I'm going to try to fit that one in. If you're new here, feel free to go see the other videos in this playlist of me playing this TBR game, but basically this is loosely based off Cards Against Humanity, except I called it Books Against Humanity. Yes, I did design it myself, and I will leave down below a link to the PDF version of it if you'd like to print it and play along. Basically I have 2 sets of cards. One set is yellow background and it's got an A for answer on it. And the other cards are turquoise and have a question mark for question. So what I do is that I have a set of 5-ish, depending on the month and my mood and how much I think I can read in 1 month, 5-ish cards in one hand. And these are the answer cards. They're going to help me fill in the prompts. So basically the question cards usually have a blank. For instance, we could be picking this one that says the cover that which, and I could be completing it with one of my answers, which could be here, has something shiny on it. This would work perfectly. And then I would need to go in my TBR bookshelf, which is the one on the left side, and I would pick something that has a cover with something shiny on it. And that would be one of the books that I would read for the month. As usual, I'm shuffling my yellow cards, and then I'm shuffling my blue cards. Okay, let's start. Let's give myself a hand of 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here is my hand. It has, some of them are upside down, it has, I do not own physically yet. So this could be a book I have on my Kindle, for instance, or a book that I plan on buying but I haven't bought yet. With a friend, so this could be a book that I have bought with a friend. Was inspired by the last booktube video that I watched. Then I will swap for an holding one book, so 1 in, 1 out. Then owned for the longest time. And that's it. That's my full hand. Okay, here is my first question. A sci-fi novel, that which? So it could be a sci-fi novel that I don't own physically yet, or that I've owned for the longest time. It could also be a sci-fi novel that I swapped for in holding one book, or that I was inspired by the last booktube video I watched. I don't think there were any sci-fi books in the last YouTube video that I watched, so what else? Okay, I think I've found my prompt. I'm gonna pick a sci-fi novel that I've owned for the longest time on my TBR. And for this I decided to pick The Space Between Worlds by Mikhail Johnson. So I think this was a special edition by Goldborough Books. This is the company that does these books. It's got a number on it and it's been signed. It's book 152 out of 500 and it's got like sprayed black edges and all that. And I actually kept the plastic wrapping around it, which I know I meant to take off, but basically since I moved flats, I'm pretty happy that I did because it definitely protected that book a little bit more than the others. What is this book about? Basically, this is about a world where some guy figured out the multiverse and how to travel to parallel Earth, but the only way to do it is if you visit a world where your counterpart is dead. You can't go to a world where your counterpart is still alive. But Kara, of the 380 realities that have been unlocked, Kara is dead in all but 8, and she's figuring out that someone is trying to kill her in all the other realities where she's not dead yet. So that's pretty much all I know about this, and I'm pretty excited to read it because I've owned it for a while, and I'm really in a sci-fi mood as well. Like, I've really enjoyed sci-fi books recently, so I think this is gonna be a perfect book to start my year with. Now let's replace the card that I've just used with a new one. Has something shiny on it. Well, that was the example card. I didn't realize I had shuffled it back to the top. So my next question is a thriller that which. So it could be a thriller that I don't own physically yet, or that was inspired by the last BookTube video that I watched. Actually, I have one for this. So this is the prompt that I'm gonna go with because I have a book that would work with this. So a thriller that was inspired by the last BookTube video that I watched. And the last BookTube video that I watched, I literally watched today because this girl, while Miranda wrote, her channel just published her own ranking of every book she read in 2021. And basically in her ranking video, she had The Ivies, which is a book that was actually written by an AuthorTube channel, Alexa Dawn, and I follow her channel. I really like her channel, and I was toying with this idea of maybe doing a video at some point where I read books written by booktubers and YouTubers in general. So I've got 2 that I was thinking of reading. Actually, I bought recently a Kindle version of another one, so I have 3 that I could make into a video. So I may work that one into a themed video. And it is this beauty, The Ivies by Alexa Dawn, and I think this is basically students in a posh school that are obsessed with getting the good grades that they need to get onto whatever's next or something like that. I might be wrong, and I think that someone gets murdered. Let's replace that card. New answer card. I ask a friend to pick out of 5. I feel like I've done this one so many times in a row now. So my new question is a thriller that which. It's another thriller card. Basically, I do have my questions in doubles because I didn't have that many, so they've been printed twice, just to explain why I've got the same card again. So it could be a thriller that I ask a friend to pick out of 5, or that has something shiny on it, or that I don't own physically yet. Do you know what? I'm gonna cheat this one. I have like 3 books that I really need to put into this month TBR, and I'm gonna cheat this one. Basically, last month for December TBR, I had the same question, and my boyfriend ended up picking Death and Croissant, and I have not been able to read it in December. I read other stuff, to be fair. And I really, really wanted to read it in January, so I think I'm gonna fit this one in because it's basically reusing the exact same question, but putting it into my January TBR. And there's more books that I need to read than just the 5 I'm gonna pick anyway, so I'm glad that I can make one of them work within the 5 books of my TBR. Let's get another answer card without knowing much about the story. That's gonna be easy because a lot of the books that I buy, I tend to be easily influenced by covers, and if I like the cover, I buy it, and that's not a good enough reason. Anyway, next question is a book I bought. So this would work perfectly well. Here you go, focus. This would work perfectly well without knowing much about the story, or with a friend. Is there a book that I have bought with a friend? Okay, so just to confirm, I am gonna use the prompt, a book I bought with a friend, and technically this is gonna work with this book in 2 ways. I'm gonna pick Beartown by Frederick Backman, and I really want to read this book as well this month. It's part of the books that I'm gonna read regardless of whether it fits into my TBR or not. So I read last year Anxious People, and I think it was my #1 book of the year last year. Loved it and fell in love with the author's writing style. And Beartown, I think, is a lot darker in terms of its topic, but in Anxious People the topic was light enough, but then there were a lot of deeper topics within that, a lot of moments that touched to something much more emotional, and it was still written with, you know, such a beautiful writing style. It was really funny and witty, and even those moments were sad and touching, overall I wasn't sad, if that makes sense. And so I have hope that this is gonna happen in this book as well. This is why I also bought it for my mom for Christmas, because that was one of the only ones that have been translated in French. They haven't translated Anxious People yet, and obviously my mom reads in French. So I thought it could be a fun one to read together. And technically I also bought it at the same time as another friend. I think she did at least. Maybe it was on Kindle, I'm not sure. But after we read Anxious People, it was part of my little book club with two of my friends, and one of them really wanted to read another one as well, and I think we both thought that Beartown would be the next one, so she may have also bought it at the same time. Which means it works within this prompt. And I believe this is about a small town somewhere in Sweden that is obsessed with hockey because they have a great hockey team or something, but some event, some incident happens that kind of shakes the town. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to give any spoilers, even though I think I know what the event is, but I don't think it's mentioned in the official synopsis, so I'm not gonna say what it is. So that's gonna be my next pick. So that was book number 4, which means I still have one more, but I think since I've managed to fit in there 2 books that I wanted to read regardless of the 5 other books, I may add another card and pick 6 books in total. So I'm gonna need to replace my old card, which is a book club pick. Ooh. I actually don't think we have one this year at the moment. We just finished reading Ace of Spades and we haven't picked one for January, February yet, so I may need to consult with my friends if we do end up doing this. And the new card for number 6 is going to be has an author whose name starts with the letter, and then I have to randomize it. That could be a fun one, although a little bit risky. So, new question card is a book that which, vague enough, I might try to randomize this. I always forget to show you the prompt I've chosen until later, so this is the prompt I have chosen. A book that has an author with a randomized first letter. It could be for the first name or the last name. Let's spin the wheel. Letter D. Cool. So, I need the letter D. I'm really regretting this right now. This is literally the only book I own with an author that has the letter D, either as the first letter of their first name or last name, and this is for their last name. It's Emily M. Danforth, and this is Plain Bad Herons, and it's a freaking brick, and I didn't expect to have a huge book in my collection right now. Let me double check my comic books. I have just saved myself. Okay, look, I do want to get to Plain Bad Herons at some point, but I just didn't want to have a huge book like this on my first TBR of the year. So I'm gonna put this back and I'm gonna read this instead. This is the first comic book of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not the ones that are basically the follow-up to the last season that was officially out on TV, but a redo of the first season, just kind of an alternative version of it. And I'm so excited. And this has 3 authors, including Dan Mora. So this counts. It counts. And this is a comic book, so it's gonna be read so fast, and I really wanted to get to it, and it's brand new in my collection. I'm just so excited, and it's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. Look at it. So yeah, that's my next book. Which means I have one more book pick. So, one more answer card for the cover. One more question card. A book I have. So this could be a book I have without knowing much about the story. A book I have without knowing much about the story. That's what I'm gonna go for. Bit of a random one, this one. I'm gonna pick Murder on Mystique by Anne Glencomer, and this is a thriller, and all I know is that it's about a rich woman on an island who disappears. I think that's literally it. And then the other book I'm gonna be reading, regardless of my TBR, is also the Inorganic Curse, which is the second book that was translated by Saishi Yokomizo, who is a classic Japanese mystery author slash thriller author. And I think the first book that I read was the Honjin Murders, and there's a third one that's out already out of the collection that they've been translating with Pushkin Vertigo. In 1940s Japan, the wealthy head of the Inugami clan dies, and his family eagerly await the reading of the will. But no sooner are its strange details revealed than a series of bizarre, gruesome murders begins. And obviously we have Detective Kendaichi, who is back to help solve these, as he was in the first book, and it's kind of the series of books with him as the main detective, kind of like Hercule Poirot with Agatha Christie's books and stuff like that. So this is very similar, but Japanese, and in a way it's so different because it's written in a very different way, and I really enjoy the difference in style and the fact that these types of thrillers feel like something I've never read before, truly. So this is going to be the last book that I'm going to put on my TBR, which means this is my pile of books for January 2022. So we have the Inorganic Curse by Seishi Yokomizo, Murder on Mystique by Anne Glencomer, Buffy the Vampire Slayer by 3 authors, including one that starts with a D, Frederick Backman's Beartown, Death and Croissant by Ian Moore, The Ivies by Alexette Dunn, and The Space Between Worlds by Mikhail Johnson. And I think that's quite a lot for me, and I think that's enough for the month of January. On this note, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing, ring that bell, all that jazz, and we'll see you guys in the next one.